Have you ever ignored one simple thing your grandma told you, only to realize years later that she was completely right? Maybe she told you, "Don't chase people who don't choose you." Maybe she said, "You don't have to explain yourself to everyone." At the time, those words might have sounded old-fashioned or even annoying. But what if Grandma understood something about human psychology that you didn't understand yet? Because some of the simplest advice we hear growing up is actually connected to powerful ideas about self-worth, emotional control, boundaries, relationships, and mental well-being. And by the end of this video, one of these 7 one-liners might completely change the way you look at your life. So stay with me, because number 6 is the advice people usually understand only after making a painful mistake. The first one is, don't chase people who don't choose you. Think about how often we try to win the attention of someone who clearly isn't giving it back. You send another text. You explain yourself again. You try harder. You give more. And somehow, the more distant they become, the harder you try. But here's the problem. When you constantly chase someone's approval, your emotional state can start depending on their behavior. If they respond, you feel valuable. If they ignore you, you start questioning yourself. That's exhausting. Grandma's advice was never necessarily about giving up on people. It was about recognizing the difference between effort and connection. Healthy relationships shouldn't require you to constantly prove that you're worthy of being there. If someone repeatedly shows you that they don't want to meet you halfway, believe their behavior. You don't have to hate them. You don't have to create drama. Sometimes you simply stop chasing and allow people to show you where they truly want you in their life. And that brings us to the second lesson, because this one can save you from countless unnecessary arguments. You don't have to answer everything. Think about your phone. Someone sends you an angry message, and within seconds you feel the urge to respond. Someone criticizes you, and you immediately want to defend yourself. Someone misunderstands you, and you feel like you have to explain every detail. But not every statement deserves your energy. Not every argument needs your participation. Not every misunderstanding needs a 10-minute explanation. One of the simplest ways to protect your emotional control is to create a pause between what happens and how you respond. That pause gives you a chance to ask a better question. Do I actually need to respond to this? Sometimes the answer is yes. Sometimes it isn't. And that's where Grandma's old advice, sleep on it, becomes surprisingly powerful. When you're angry, don't rush. When you're hurt, don't immediately react. When you're emotional, give yourself time. Because sometimes the smartest response isn't the perfect comeback. It's no response at all. The third lesson is, you can't pour from an empty cup. You've probably heard this phrase before, but think about what it actually means. Imagine your mental energy like the battery on your phone. Every difficult conversation, stressful responsibility, argument, decision, and emotional problem uses some of that battery. If you never recharge, eventually even a small problem can feel enormous. Yet many people feel guilty for resting. They think taking care of themselves means they're being selfish. But taking care of yourself isn't the opposite of caring about other people. It can actually help you show up better for them. Sleep, exercise, quiet time, time with people you trust, time away from your phone. Even doing absolutely nothing for a little while can give your brain room to recover. Grandma may not have used words like emotional regulation or psychological recovery. She probably just said, take care of yourself. Different language, same lesson. You cannot give your best to everyone while constantly running yourself into the ground. Now here's a lesson that becomes more important as you get older. Not everyone deserves a front row seat to your life. Maybe Grandma didn't say it exactly like that, but she understood the principle. Not everyone needs to know your plans. Not everyone needs to know your problems. Not everyone needs access to your relationships, finances, fears, or private decisions. And there's a psychological reason this matters. When you constantly share your personal life with everyone around you, you can start becoming overly concerned with their opinions. Suddenly, you're not just living your life. You're managing everybody else's reaction to it. That's exhausting. Healthy boundaries allow you to decide who gets your trust, your time, your attention, and your vulnerability. And here's the important part. Having boundaries doesn't mean being cold. You can be kind without being completely available. You can love people without telling them everything. You can forgive someone without giving them unlimited access to your life. Sometimes protecting your peace simply means becoming more selective about who gets to see the private version of you. The fifth lesson might explain why some friendships make you feel amazing while others leave you completely drained. Grandma's advice was simple. Be careful who you become around. Think about the people you spend the most time with. After being around them, do you feel motivated, peaceful, confident, and supported? Or do you feel anxious, insecure, negative, and exhausted? Human beings naturally learn from the people around them. We observe their habits, their attitudes, their language, and even their expectations. Over time, certain behaviors can start feeling normal simply because we're surrounded by them. If everyone around you constantly complains, complaining can become normal. If everyone around you gives up easily, giving up can become normal. But if the people around you value growth, responsibility, kindness, and discipline, those qualities can become easier for you to practice too. This doesn't mean you should abandon everyone who has problems. We all have problems. It means you should pay attention to what your relationships repeatedly bring out of you. The right people won't make you perfect, but they can make it easier to become the person you actually want to be. Now we're getting to the advice that can prevent some of the biggest regrets in life. Don't make a permanent decision because of a temporary feeling. Think about how powerful emotions can be. When you're angry, you may want to say something you can never take back. When you're heartbroken, you may believe you'll never feel happy again. When you're embarrassed, you may want to disappear. When you're frustrated with your job, you may want to quit immediately. But emotions change. The way you feel today isn't necessarily the way you'll feel tomorrow. That's why making major decisions during intense, emotional moments can be dangerous. When emotions become overwhelming, your attention can become focused on what's happening right now instead of the bigger picture. Grandma's solution was usually much simpler. Wait. Don't send the message yet. Don't make the decision tonight. Take a walk. Get some sleep. Talk to someone you trust. Give your nervous system time to calm down. Then make the decision. Sometimes you don't need better advice. You simply need more time between the emotion and the action. And that small pause can save you from a decision you'll regret for years. And finally, there's one sentence almost every generation has heard. You'll understand when you're older. As a kid, that sentence could be incredibly frustrating. You wanted an explanation immediately. You wanted to know why something mattered. But here's the strange thing about wisdom. Sometimes you can't fully understand a lesson until you've lived through it. Someone can tell you to appreciate your family, but experience teaches you why time with them is precious. Someone can tell you that money isn't everything, but life can teach you the value of peace, health, relationships, and time. Someone can tell you not to worry so much about what other people think, but eventually you realize that many of the people you were trying to impress weren't thinking about you nearly as much as you imagined. That's why Grandma's advice can hit completely differently when you're older. The words didn't necessarily change. You changed. Your experiences gave those words a deeper meaning. And maybe that's the real secret behind Grandma's one-line advice. She wasn't trying to give you complicated psychological theories. She was giving you simple rules for navigating a complicated world. Don't chase people who don't choose you. Don't waste your energy answering every argument. Take care of yourself before you completely burn out. Protect your private life. Pay attention to the people who influence you. Never let one temporary emotion control your entire future. And remember that some lessons only become clear after you've lived them. Because wisdom doesn't always sound complicated. Sometimes it's just one sentence from someone who has lived long enough to know what actually matters. So think about the advice your grandma used to repeat. Maybe there was one sentence you didn't understand back then. Maybe today you finally do. And if one of these lessons reminded you of something your grandmother used to say, leave that one sentence in the comments. Someone reading it might need to hear it today. Because sometimes One sentence really can change the way you see your life.